We want to start letting people in so that we can start right on time. I'm not opposed to that.
Okay. May do that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start.
Co-host. I don't think I'm co-host anymore.
Let me fix that. All right, you should be the co-host now.
There we go.
And I'm going to start streaming also.
Okay. Welcome, good evening. Thank you all for joining us. We're gonna get started kind of right on time. I've got 5:58, so just 2 minutes, but we are currently recording and currently live streaming, just so everybody's aware. At 5:59, so we're going to wait just 1 more minute while the last few people are joining us, and we'll get started right on time. All right, I have right at 6 o'clock. I think one of our last SHAC members is joining us. And we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, I'm Aurora Martinez-Jones, and I am your chair for the 2021-2022 SHAC year. I'll ask, just as we get started, for individuals to keep themselves on mute unless we are ready for you to speak up. I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves, all of our SHAC members, and then there will be time also for Round Rock ISD administration and leaders to introduce themselves as well. And so what I would like to start off with, though, is just to set the expectations for our virtual meetings. First, want to make sure that everybody is aware that we are currently recording our SHAC meeting, and our SHAC meeting is being live streamed. We are allowing access, and at the bottom of your agenda is the website for the SHAC website, where individuals can access our meetings if you ever need to share that with anybody. But wanted to start there. Additionally, because we are still virtual for our SHAC meetings as of now, and we'll see if hopefully we can visit together in person if our community is healthy enough and we can all do that, while providing an opportunity for those who cannot to still join. But for now, we are virtual, and we just need to make sure that everybody's on the same page with the expectations of how we'll engage on the virtual meeting. As I said, we are being live streamed, so I want to make sure that everybody understands the demeanor of our virtual SHAC meetings. I'd like for us to make sure we take time to give everybody who wants to speak on the SHAC an opportunity to be able to speak up. There is a raising hand feature, or if you wave at me too, I can see you. I'm pretty good at keeping everybody within my line of sight. The chat feature is a little difficult for me to manage while we also run the SHAC meeting. So You can feel free to put an idea or some thought that you have that you want to make sure gets captured along with our minutes in the chat, but I may not see it in order to respond to any comments in the chat, but it will be saved and recorded for our meetings purposes as well. So just know the chat will be saved. You can try and memorialize some of your ideas there if you didn't get it quite out. But if you could use the raising the hand feature or wave at me if you want to speak up so that I can make sure we take time to let individuals be heard. And so let's not interrupt or do anything like that. It gets really hard to hear on Zoom. So I want to make sure that we're clear, especially for those individuals who will be listening in. I don't expect anything to get unruly or disruptive, but we will use the muting features or the waiting room if we need to do that. But I doubt that we'll need to do anything like that. So I'll just anticipate that we'll be able to have successful meetings and get through all of our SHAC business that we need to. I will ask that we stay focused on SHAC business. We are very specifically charged as the School Health Advisory Council. So I very much want to make sure we stay in that lane as we talk about the charges that we have in our individual committees and the work that we do. And so I just wanted to set the stage there. So any expectations about how to be heard, that you understand how to do that. If you have any private comments that you want to mention to me about any concerns that you have during the meetings, please feel free to email me. I hope you all have my email address at this point. You should have received a couple of emails from me at least, but I'm always open to hearing from you all about anything that you're concerned about or any suggestions about better ways to make sure that everybody is heard if you feel like everybody is not being heard. But we'll be doing a lot of work together this year, a lot of important work. So I'm very excited about that. I want to go ahead and move into our introductions of all of our SHAC members. I am, again, Aurora Martinez-Jones. I'm with the McNeil Learning Community, a parent, 2 little ones in elementary school, and I'm your chair. So I'm very happy and excited to get to know everybody who I don't already know and continue working with those who I have been working with in the past. So if you all don't mind, I will just move along and I'll just go through first the roster. Everybody should have received that, and I'll just call out names to see who's there. It'll also help us be able to take account of everybody who's present. I do want to make sure everybody is also aware that Dr. Tawny Smith had to resign from the board. She has personal matters that she's attending to. And so we're going to make sure that her trustee is aware of that. So we may be getting a new member to fill the rest of her term. I'll just go through, first start with my executive team. Let's see, we have our vice chair, Hillary. We have you with us.
Oh, so for vice chair, it's Kelly.
Oh, is it swapped? Oh, Kelly, go ahead. I'm sorry. We need to update the website. It's got the position swapped. So we'll get that fixed, but yes, Kelly.
Yes, hi, I'm Kelly Darby, and this is my 3rd year on SHAC. I have 2 kids in the district, 3rd grader at Chandler Oaks and a 6th grader at Walsh. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And our secretary, Hillary.
Just unmuting. Hi, I'm Hillary. I have a 3rd grader who's theoretically at Jollyville. We are homeschooling this year, but hope to be back at Jollyville next year.
Thank you. Let's see. I have on the, I'm going to go down the roster. Diana Ann, done?
Hi, I'm Yan Yan Dan, and I have 3 kids. They go to Laurel Mountain Elementary School, a pre-K, 1st grade, and 5th grade. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Welcome, welcome. Dr. Jennifer Faulkner.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Faulkner. Our family is in the Cedar Ridge feeder pattern. This is my 3rd year on the SHAC. Happy to be back again for a new term and look forward to our work this year.
Thank you. Kathy Irwin.
Hello, everybody. Kathy Irwin. This is my first time, so I'm just joining SHAC and excited about it. I have a 10th grader at Cedar Ridge and a 7th grader at Ridgeview.
Thank you. Becky Laswell.
Hi, I'm Becky Laswell, and I'm having computer trouble today, but I have elementary girls at Great Oaks, and this is my first full year, but my second year in general.
Thank you. Dr. Larry Herrera? Not today. All right. And Supriya Nadu Ferris?
Hi, I have 3 kids. I have a freshman at Westwood, an 8th grader at Grisham, and a 3rd grader at Canyon Creek Elementary. And I'm happy to be a part of SHAC.
Wonderful, thank you. And Michael Oda?
Yes, I'm Michael. I am a former teacher at Round Rock ISD, but more importantly, I have 3 children who have all gone through the Round Rock High feeder pattern. Currently, one is at Chisholm, and another one is a 9th grader at Round Rock High. Excited to be here. This is my second, but first full year.
Thank you. Denise Ray?
Hi, I'm Denise. I have been a parent for 12 years in the district. I have a junior at Round Rock High School and an Aggie. Sorry for you Longhorns. I'm going to say hi to our favorite nurse, Brandy Hefner. Don't get to see her nearly enough. This is my first year.
Thank you. Leslie Winters? Oh, I don't think. A little bit of audio trouble, I think.
Learning community, and this is my year on the SHAC, and I'm happy. I think so. Sorry.
No worries. I think it cleared up there at the end. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. All right. Next, Gila Thompson. And you're on mute.
Okay, can y'all hear me now? Sorry.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, I'm Gila Thompson. This is my first year, and I graduated from Round Rock High School. My kids were in the Cedar Ridge Learning Community, and I'm just representing the community at large at this point.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Monica Faulkner.
Hi, I'm Monica Faulkner. This is my 8th or 9th year on the SHAC, so I've been here a while. I have 2 kids, one at Blackland Prairie and one at Cedar Ridge High School.
Very nice. Thank you. And Marlo McShann.
Hello there. How's everybody doing?
Good. Good.
This is my 3rd year on the SHAC. My daughter just graduated from Westwood High School this year, so she is going to UT Arlington. And I have a son, but he's in the Austin Independent School District, and he's 11. So, but yeah, 3rd year here, and glad to still be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Robin Honig.
Hey, it's good to be here. It's my 3rd year on the SHAC, and I have a virtual careaway kid. We're loving it, and it's nice to be back.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, Cornell Woolridge.
Hello, everyone. It's Cornell Woolridge. I'm in the McNeil feeder pattern. I am a community member, and this is my 2nd year on SHAC. So happy to be here. And I also want to say, Marlo, I'm actually from Arlington, so happy to know your kid's going to be a Maverick. So congrats. Thank you all so much.
Very nice. Thank you. Melissa Vandermeer.
Hi, my name is Melissa Vandermeer, and I have a 6th grader and an 8th grader at Chisholm Trail. And this is my 4th or 5th year on the SHAC.
Wonderful. Thank you. Michelle Andrew.
Hi, how are you?
Good,
can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, yes.
Glad to see your faces again. Hope you all had a great summer. This is my 6th year on the SHAC. Learned so much from all the parents, community members, administration. Thank you so much for all the knowledge over the years. I have two children in the district, a senior at Round Rock High School, and then a little girl at Old Town Elementary, ruling the school in 5th grade. So looking forward to working with all of you this year.
Thank you. And Katie Kirish.
Hi, I'm Katie Kirish, born and raised in Austin, but been in Round Rock since 2004. I have a 7th grader at Cedar Valley Middle School, a 4th and a 3rd grader at Fern Bluff Elementary School, and I have a 7-month-old COVID baby. This is my 3rd year on the SHAC.
Thank you. Thank you. And I've gone through our roster of SHAC members, but I want to move into other individuals that we have joining us. And I want to start with Ryan Smith. If you will please introduce yourself to everybody, and then you can call on Round Rock ISD administration and staff to introduce themselves. That would be very helpful.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Ryan Smith. I'm the new Chief of Teaching and Learning. You guys might have known Ms. Mandy Estes. She retired, and she's doing what retired folks do. I think she's enjoying herself quite a bit. But I'm excited to be here, to be able to join you. This is one of the opportunities that we have to work together and kind of forge a path forward. I'm also a parent of 2 students in the district. I've got a 6th grader and a 7th grader, both at Chisholm Trail. And I actually have my wife teaches at Walsh, and my dad teaches at Round Rock High. So I've got a lot of family members in the school district here. And so, like I said, happy to be here. I'll be helping out at all the meetings. I might, if you forget to mute yourself, I'm telling you now, I might mute you. So apologize for that in advance. Please don't take offense. I know all of us sometimes forget to mute ourselves. So if we hear some feedback, I might just mute you. So I'm going to take a chance now to introduce just a few of the district folks who they're not necessarily going to present tonight, but they probably will be in some of our meetings throughout the year. So they're just really just going to say hi tonight, so you can put a face with the name. And I'm not sure how long all of them are going to be able to spend with us tonight, but they can obviously stay as long as they can. But like I said, you'll be hearing from them as we go. And I'm just going to go in a random order of the people that I see on the screen. So the first one I'm going to introduce, since she was already mentioned, our Director of Nursing Services, Brandy Hefner. I'll say hello. All right, so that's Brandy. And then go ahead, Brandy. You want to say a couple words?
I wasn't sure if you wanted me to say anything. My name is Brandy Hefner. I'm the Director of Health Services for Round Rock ISD. This is my 2nd year in my health services role, but I've been a school nurse since 1995. I've been with the district since 2007. I'm also a parent, Round Rock ISD parent. I have a daughter just graduated from McNeil and goes to UT. And then I have a son in the 18+ program. So anyway, longtime Round Rock lovers.
All right, thank you, Brandy. Next, I'm going to introduce Ms. Sharon Wilkes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sharon Wilkes, and I have been in the district since 1999. So I'm an oldie, hopefully, but a goodie. And I've been an assistant principal, a principal, and associate director. I'm currently director of academics for secondary for 3 of our 5 learning communities. I also have a son. He just graduated from Round Rock High School. So he is now attending University of Texas at San Antonio. And I'm happy to be here with you. Oh, and I also serve as the district COVID coordinator. And so that's the reason I'm here joining you all with the School Health Advisory Committee.
Sharon just threw that in there at the end. That's been a major part of her life for the last 18 months, and she's done a great job. Her and Brandy together, really guiding all of us through this, very difficult time on campuses over the last, like I said, 18 months. Dr. Lashonda Lewis, she's our coordinator of counseling services. I'll say hello, Dr. Lewis.
Yes, thank you. So like Ryan said, my name is Lashonda Lewis. I am the counseling services coordinator for our district. I have been with our district since 2016 and have been part of SHAC since that time. I do have 2 little ones, but they are not in our school district. But I'm serving our school district and supporting our students.
All right, thank you, Lashonda. And I see Yana Koleva. She's our Director of Food Services.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. My name is Yana Koleva. I'm the Director of the Food Service Department. I've been with the district going on 6 years, and in my 3rd year as the Director of the department. Looking forward to work with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Yana. And Mr. Dwayne Street, he's our Chief Equity Officer. Mr. Street, you want to say a few words?
Good evening. Thank you, Ryan. Dwayne Street, Chief Equity Officer. I've been with the district now for about 10 months. I had the privilege of presenting to some of you last, I believe, February, and hoping to be invited back to continue that dialogue. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Street. And like we said, a lot of the folks from the district will be throughout this year presenting their areas of expertise as we work together as the SHAC. And I don't think I missed, if I missed any Round Rock folks, forgive me, but I don't think I did. Speak up if you did.
Hey, sorry. I'm Emily O'Neill.
Tara Hollywood.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Emily.
Sorry, I'm Emily O'Neill. I'm the registered dietitian, and I've been with the district and SHAC for 2 years now.
Oh, sorry about that, Emily. And then Tara Hollywood.
Hi, I'm Tara Hollywood, Assistant Athletic Director that oversees health, wellness, cheer, PE. And you have to forgive me, I'm actually at a volleyball game right now doing other duties as assigned.
Thank you, Tara. Yeah, I just came in from a football game over here at Cedar Ridge, watching my son play for Chisholm. So we've all got a lot of things going on. And a couple folks who will be joining the SHAC that we're having to be out of town or tied up tonight. Dr. Amy Grosso, she's our Director of Behavioral Health. She'll definitely be here for most of the meetings. She sends her regards, and she said she'll definitely be here for the next one. I know Chief Yarborough oftentimes tries to join these meetings as well. So them and others will be joining in throughout the year. So Judge Jones, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I wanted to make sure we did take this time to get to know everybody because we're going to be working very closely with each other over this next school year. And so I want to make sure, for the purpose of those who may be new to joining us, and just a refresher for everybody, so that whenever I discussed earlier staying in our SHAC lane and making sure we're focusing on SHAC business, that we all have a clear understanding of what that is. And so everybody should have gotten a copy of the bylaws through email. And I wanted just to very briefly make sure that we go over just the highlights of what our purpose is and what we're doing. So our SHAC, obviously, like all SHACs, are mandated by the Texas Education Code. And so we're an advisory body. We are here to provide guidance, recommendations, and other assistance to the Board of Trustees. Decisions that we make are for recommendations to the board, not for any decisions with their own authority. So I just want to make sure we all understand in our purpose, that is what we're here to do for guidance and recommendations and whatever other assistance the Board of Trustees would like us to do within our limitations. We do have bylaws to guide the way that we do our work. And we have in the bylaws what very specifically outlines our purpose and our vision. And those are the two things that I wanted to go over before we do another more overview about how this year will look and what our responsibilities are. But I just want to read to you the purpose. The SHAC purpose is to promote sound school policies and practice that will improve and maintain the health and wellness of its students, faculty, and community members. And I wanted to read that to make sure that we understand the scope. We're looking at students, faculty, and community members when we're talking about promoting sound school policies and practices. And the SHAC vision is a future where every child in Round Rock ISD has the opportunity to live a healthful lifestyle, to be healthy and physically educated, and to transfer that knowledge into action. And so I just wanted to make sure we started there as we start this new SHAC year. You have the rest of the bylaws to look through the more details about how we do our work. But we do like to try and either come to a consensus, or if we need to do things by a vote when we start making some decisions on our recommendations to the board, by a majority. And so that's outlined there. Copies of our bylaws are posted on our website as well. And so one of the things that is in our bylaws are the different committees and the work that each of our committees are going to do, as well as our time frame for doing that work. So before I go into more details about the committees, I do want to outline kind of the timeline of what we're looking at. Each SHAC year, we do the best to stick to our timelines. And I know it can get confusing, especially in the spring. Things tend to pick up a lot faster with wanting to make sure we're reaching our goals for getting recommendations prepared. You all should have received by email as well a document that has just the SHAC annual process. And I hoped to provide that. And I first saw it when Dr. Monica Faulkner was chair, and I was like, this is very helpful. So I wanted to make sure we brought it back. But it really gave an idea of what we can expect in the time frame to make sure that our committee is on par with meeting our goals. Our ultimate goal is to have recommendations that we want to present to the Board of Trustees at their May board meeting. And so that is something that myself or other members of the executive committee would bring forward. If we're in person, hopefully everybody can be in attendance. If it's some virtual participation, then that may be an option. But we really want to come together as a SHAC and presenting those recommendations. But usually it's the chair who will do the actual presentation to the board, but it's going to be based on the recommendations as a whole that we agree to. So that one-page document that kind of has the dates of all of our SHAC meetings along the left-hand side, and it has independent committee meetings occurring. That gives you an idea of how we can stay on track with our committee work and in our SHAC meetings so that we have a lot prepared ahead of time, and we can sit down and review and vote as needed on the recommendations that we do want to move forward to the board. And then that gets put together in a big report and a presentation that we do to the Board of Trustees at their May meeting. After that, in the June to August timeframe is when the Round Rock ISD staff provides any response to our recommendations. And so then the administration staff will look at it, give some responses to the board, and then the board can decide to act on the recommendations, and then the staff will go ahead and implement those recommendations sometime in September. And so that's just the time frame that we have. And so the very important work that we do is deciding what kind of recommendations do we want to provide to the board and why. And that's really going to be important. So what we spend our time doing in our SHAC meetings often is one, thinking through the issues that are of concern for our Round Rock ISD community. Like we said, students, faculty, staff, the community. And we think about what is most important and where we want to focus recommendations, especially if we think there needs to be change or there needs to be additional support, or if we need to continue doing something that we're worried may not continue. But they are under the different scopes of our various committees that we have for the SHAC. And so first, before I go into the committees to talk a little bit more about the different committees, does anybody have any questions, any thoughts or comments just about the process in general and our purpose here on the SHAC?
I just wanted to clarify, and I assume this is the case, I just want to make sure. As far as the bylaws go, when we say, or when it says faculty, does that, or either faculty or community members, is that where staff gets included? Because in reality, there are teachers, and then there are other staff. So I just want to make sure that I knew where in the bylaws staff is considered, or that they are being considered.
I believe the intent was under the faculty, and okay. If at any point we believe the bylaws need to be cleared up a little bit, that is also something we can do during our time with the SHAC.
I just want to make sure that I was clear on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Dr. Jennifer Faulkner.
Yeah, thanks. Do you intend to give us any update as to feedback or anything that came through the Board of Trustees from our recommendations from last year?
Yes, I think Ryan may have some for us.
Sure, I can share a little bit about that. So they're going to, I know it says August when they get the response from the administration. They're actually getting that Friday. So I anticipate after they do get that, all I can say is I guess I apologize that it didn't go in August. We had quite a bit of turnover this summer internally, and I think that delayed some of the responses from the various departments that needed to be put together. But it is complete now, and it's going in a board update to them Friday. So after they get a chance to look at kind of the staff response to the recommendations, and I think at that point, then we'll be able to kind of share paths forward.
Thank you. And Dr. Monica Faulkner.
Ryan, there was also a report that we had put into place several years ago that was supposed to be updated annually by the administration, just to give us stats on just all the numbers that our committees always ask for. So it was just kind of a compilation of all of that in one place. And I forgot the person's name who worked on it, but I have a copy of it if you want to look at it.
Yeah, if you could send that to me, because her name's probably Angie that might have worked on that. So she was gone this summer as well, potentially. So if you could, I can find that probably, or if you could send that to me, then I'll make sure we continue to update that as well.
Any other thoughts, questions, or comments before we start looking at the specific committees? All right. So you all also should have gotten an overview of the committees. And before I start talking a little bit more in depth about the committees, I do want to let everybody know that the intent is that as a SHAC, we all select committees that we're interested in working on. And that within those committees is where we'll have the deeper discussions on those specific topics where recommendations will come from. So the 3 committees that we have are the Wellness Committee, the Mental and Behavioral Health Committee, the Human Development and Sexuality Committee. And so as we talk about the committees, if you can start thinking about which committee you would like to be a part of, recommendations that are very specific to those topics are the committee's work to do. And then we bring the very specific, if it's on wellness or mental and behavioral health or on human development and sexuality, as we have those groups focus in on those topics and come up with recommendations, those ideas and those recommendations will come back to this bigger SHAC where we can talk about them all together and decide whether or not those recommendations coming out of the committee that we look at are ones that we move forward all together as a SHAC as recommendations to the board. So we'll have a lot of ideas. Not all of them will be ones that we want to put forth this school year to the board. Some of them may be things that are already being addressed and we didn't realize it. So the other part of our SHAC meetings is going to be as we work in our committees and start thinking about things we want to look at for recommendations. If there are areas in which we want to get more education, if there's data that we need, then we can put those requests out to the district and they will either have the person who is responsible for that come present to us and share the data or be able to send us reports. If there's surveys that we want to do or ways that we want to gather more information, those are also options that we have to be able to gather all of the information that we need in order to start thinking about what recommendations we want to make. So it's learning and making sure we're up to date, we're up to speed, we're well informed as we look at making those recommendations. I did want to provide also a suggestion for how we manage our time on our SHAC meetings. When we used to be in person, one of the things that was really helpful was that we would take what we needed to do as a SHAC together and take care of that business ahead of time. And then once we would adjourn, we would break up into our committee groups so that we could then work on our committee specific work after our SHAC meeting has adjourned. And so we didn't do that, I think, last year, and we spent time outside of the days that we've scheduled for the SHAC meetings, trying to come together and meet. And I know that's a lot to ask for this group of volunteers. So one of the thoughts that we had was go ahead and utilize the tools that we have a little bit better. And Zoom does have the opportunity for us to make breakout rooms. And so we were thinking it may be an option for us if everybody agrees that we can go ahead and take care of SHAC business first and in an appropriate amount of time, especially if we're very efficient, and use the rest of that time for groups to be in the breakout rooms. And so y'all can spend the days of the SHAC meetings also working on your committees after the SHAC meetings so that there's less time trying to find room in your schedule outside of the SHAC meeting evenings to get that work done. Obviously, we still will do some research and things by email as far as making sure we get coordinated any speakers that we want. But if you have a very specific person from the school district or somebody that you think has information that will be helpful for the recommendations y'all are thinking about, we can invite them perhaps just at the point where you need them in your breakout room at the end after the SHAC meeting has adjourned. So if after we talk about the committees, the couple of decisions that I will ask you all to make by the end of this meeting are 2. One is going to be which committee do you think you're interested in, and to go ahead and join that committee in a breakout room after we adjourn the SHAC meeting today. If you change your mind and realize you don't like that, that is perfectly fine with me. I am not that strict about it. If you want to switch committees, we can do that. but just to start getting a flavor for which committee you want to be on. So that will be one thing. And then the other thing is, before we adjourn, I would like to get a temperature from this group if y'all do want to do it that way, where we spend time after we adjourn on SHAC days and use some of our reserve time to go ahead and meet in breakout rooms. So that will be the other decision I'll just ask for you guys to make today. So I do want to get to Ryan's presentation because I think we are ready to start learning. So I'm just going to briefly do an overview of the committees so that everybody has an idea of the flavor for the work of what the committee is going to do. So if we look at the Mental Health and Behavioral Health Committee, the overview says that that committee is going to provide recommendations to the entire SHAC on aspects of school policies and programs related to mental health, social support, and social emotional well-being, as well as substance, tobacco, and alcohol use prevention and treatment. And this is one of our standing committees in our bylaws. In the past, we had some committees that addressed substance, tobacco, and alcohol use prevention, and it was kind of a separate committee. And there was some point in the SHAC where we just pulled that into a committee that was called Mental and Behavioral Health Committee. So in the overview, you will see some bullet points of different topics for recommendations that the committee has made in the past. And so it was all the way from social emotional learning to mental health centers, and even as recently as our last set of recommendations to continue support and investment in peer-to-peer programming. So that's one of our committees, Mental and Behavioral Health Committee. Then we have Human Development and Sexuality Committee, and that provides recommendations to the entire SHAC on aspects of school policies and programs related to, oh, wait, that's not correct. Let me pull it from our, I apologize. It looks like there's an error in our overview. So apologies for that. I hate to call on people, but Dr. Monica Faulkner, do you want to give a good overview of what the committee and what people who join that committee can expect to work on?
Yes, we actually have some work that we have to do based on the last legislative session. So every school district is going to be required to have adopted a health curriculum by 2022. And so we've got to work on that this year. And there's a lot of steps that we have to follow to get through that process. The first is the board telling us to work on this. And then we've got to have 2 public meetings. We've got to review a bunch of curricula, decide what works best for us, and then move to have that adopted so it's in place for the next school year. So that committee is going to have to work really fast this year.
And that's just to say, if you join that committee, you may have to do some meetings outside of our SHAC days, because that does sound like a lot of work, especially with the additional meetings that you need. So I just want to put that out there as people are thinking about, but super, super important. And what I will do is I will revise that overview just so everybody has a fresh copy with the correct description for Human Development and Sexuality Committee. I do apologize for that, but you can see the bullet points on previous topics is correct. That has some of the things that have been looked at by the Human Development and Sexuality Committee. I think it would be great if y'all were able to come up with other recommendations, but your time might really be spent all there, just so that everybody is aware. And then our third committee is the Wellness Committee, and this committee provides the recommendations to the entire SHAC related to nutrition, general health services, physical education, and athletics. And so that again was one that we historically had a different name, and it was kind of pulled together as the Wellness Committee. And so we have those 3 committees that have a little bit different lanes of work that they need to do, but all of those committees do fall under the business of the School Health Advisory Council, the SHAC. So as you start thinking about where you may want to best spend your energy or use your expertise or experience, or even just your motivation and curiosity in learning more and helping to improve those areas for our school district, we do welcome you to start thinking about that. So that's our overview of the committees. We are going to get a little bit of a presentation today, because I know I'm very curious to learn about some of the updates of what's going on. We know that virtual learning is still occurring in Round Rock ISD, but it looks different than it did last year. And I know that we're all really interested in kind of what's the state of our schools right now. And I think this is a great time to go ahead and turn it over to you, Ryan, for your presentation.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And I know others on the call can definitely chime in too, as I kind of paint a picture, of what our campuses look like right now, as well as what all of our students who are learning virtually, kind of their experience as we're talking. So I think that first I'd like to start with is just kind of on campus, just kind of paint a picture of like I said, what that looks like and how it might still be different than what you might expect pre-COVID times. Obviously, we have a lot more students on campus. Everybody above 6th grade, 7th and up, is learning on campus. Some of the I think great things we're seeing is the number of students who've been able to kind of reconnect rather quickly, with their various clubs, extracurricular type things that they really missed out on over the last years. I had a chance to listen to the Stony Point choir sing this morning, and student after student in that group talked about the connections that they're able to reignite now that they're back on campus. Some academic new things or changes you might hear about that are happening on campus. We're focusing a lot on accelerated instruction. That's essentially kind of our academic response. And you might hear terms like House Bill 4545 or other things coming from the state. That was a bill that was passed that really requires accelerated instruction for students who academically were not successful on the STAR exam last spring, STAR or EOC. So we've got a lot of teams working together to find ways to fit time during the school day to get a lot of the kids caught up and just accelerated from where some of the learning and everything that they missed. Because even kids who were either on campus last year or had no break in their instruction during 2020, we're definitely seeing some elements that we need to recover, and we need to go over again, or they might have missed. Some of the big struggles that we're having on campus is with our guest educators or substitutes that we call. You might have heard on a lot of your students' campuses that there's a lot of positions that are filled internally every day because we just don't have the number of substitute teachers choosing jobs every day to fill all the needs that we have. So that's been a big struggle, I know, for our campuses. And then, and obviously we all know that COVID's still going on. And if you're a parent, you're probably getting the COVID letters. So there is just a lot of movement, with teachers and with students happening every single day on campuses. So we did a board training or workshop this last weekend where we talked about student outcome goals and really some great academic conversations happening there. And one of the things I was talking with them about is really, if we're looking at an academic response to not only the last year, but really even this year, it's really a 2-year response to try to get back to where we were academically pre-COVID. So that's the way we're looking at it. Our teachers could use every ounce of appreciation that you could possibly give them, or anybody could give them. They're still, as stressful as last year was with the unknowns. This year, there's still a lot of unknowns happening. So I don't want to sound like a downer, but I also don't want to paint a picture that like right now on campus is just like everything's just normal as we would expect. We're moving in that direction. It's getting closer to there, but we're definitely not there. I'm not there yet. So that's really kind of an update on campus. There's really nothing. Sorry, there's a fly that's been harassing me since I sat down. I'm right here, so I'll try to ignore it. But before I break into the virtual, because I know that's most different for everybody, so I want to go in a little more detail there. If there's any questions about what's happening on campus with either anything academic related or COVID related, anything like that?
I think this may be both an in-person and virtual question, but one question that I have, and I don't know if you'll have the answer or maybe later, I know from schools, like individual schools, teachers were pulled to do virtual learning. Do we know if those teachers are going to go back to the schools that they came from, or if they're going to be shuffled again, or how that's going to work after we're virtual?
Yeah, so that's part of my virtual discussion, but I can jump into that. So yeah, we knew there were going to be a lot of students that were going to want and need virtual learning. I think the severity of the Delta variant kind of accelerated that number quickly. So we shot up to over 5,000 students pretty quickly that we're going to need to teach virtually. So the way we identified teachers for that, because obviously those kids we already had staffed, we had our campuses staffed for those kids to be on campus. They weren't leaving Round Rock ISD, but they weren't going to be on those campuses anymore. They were going to be learning virtually. So kind of how that happened in early August was that our HR department can look at seat counts. That's how many students are in each class. And then they go and they work with the principal on how can we combine some classes? How can we identify teachers that can be temporarily assigned to teach the virtual students? So our plan right now is definitely for those teachers to go back, where they were, because we're anticipating all those students are going to go back, where they were. So that's definitely the thinking, and really from the beginning our thinking around how long is our virtual learning program going to last. It's until a vaccine is readily available for 5 through 11-year-olds. So when that happens, obviously that hasn't happened yet, but we're working right now to identify exactly what we mean by readily accessible. Is that 4 weeks? Is that 5 weeks after when like you can walk into Walgreens and get a vaccine for your kinder, first, second, third grader? We're still developing that right now. But the thinking right now is that all those teachers will go back to their campuses. One element to keep in mind though is that overall our enrollment is down, quite a bit compared to what we staffed for in the spring. So right now we're just over 47,000 students. So we are essentially overstaffed. We have more teachers than we need currently. We anticipate all these students to come back. If you look at our numbers of where a lot of the students where we're short, it's in kinder, first grade. So it's in those lower grades. So we do anticipate those numbers to come back once we're past the pandemic. But I've got some more numbers in the presentation I'm going to share here shortly about numbers of teachers and things like that, number of students. I saw a couple hands.
Got a couple questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Miss Kyrish, do you have a question?
I actually have 2 questions about the accelerated learning and House Bill 4545. Do you want me to ask both?
Sure.
And then you answer both? Okay. For the students that didn't take the STAR test last year, is the accelerated learning going to be implemented entirely based on the BOA assessments? And then the second one is, will Round Rock ISD be utilizing the beginning of the school day, end of the school day option, or will it have to be in that 30-hour requirement? Will it have to be embedded in the school day?
Sure.
That's it.
I'll take your first question first. So yeah, the students, it was a little different at every grade level, but we had roughly 60 to 75% of our students actually take the STAR exam in the spring, or EOC. So those students that did not, if they're in kinder through 5th grade, we are basing that off the beginning of year literacy and math assessment. So that's the M class. If you're familiar with our assessments, that's the literacy assessment that all of our kinder through 5th grade students take. And then Ames Web Plus is the math assessment that all of our kinder through 5th grade students take. Secondary, they're taking essentially a TEA created, we call it an interim assessment. But if you're a 4th grader right now and you did not take the 3rd grade STAR, then you'll be taking the 3rd grade interim assessment. And that's how we're going to be able to determine if you likely would have been successful on that STAR test in the spring. Going forward, this won't be an issue because we anticipate everybody to be back in the spring to be able to take that assessment. Your second question about the 30 hours. So that's going to be different for every student. It's an individualized plan. Different campuses are responding to that in different ways. A lot of them are going to be able to meet that need during the school day. Some might be outside the school day. So it's going to be a little different for everybody. Going forward, a lot of our summer school programming is going to be geared towards some of the students who we know are going to need those 30 hours and that accelerated instruction. But this year, House Bill 4545 didn't get passed until I think summer had already started. So our summer learning program was already underway. So we weren't able to do that this year. I see Robin, I think, is that Miss Koenig?
Koenig, hi.
Koenig, sorry.
I was wondering if students have been able to join virtual learning after the beginning of the school year.
So after we did have a cutoff on August, I can't remember the date. I think it was the 9th. It was before the school year started. So we did have a pretty clear cut at that point. But we have had several students, the kind of the path, if there is a severe medical need or anything like that that would constitute a student needing virtual learning after the school year started, is kind of that path as they talk with their home campus principal first. And they kind of discuss, if that's something that's needed. And then if they decide yes, then that principal talks to the area superintendent talks to Dr. Presley, who's the senior chief of schools and innovation. And then that's kind of how that decision gets made. There have been some students that have been allowed in, but for the vast majority, we had a pretty clear cutoff at that point.
Thank you.
Ms. Darby, question?
Yeah, I just wanted to get some clarification on something you said about the on-campus, that you're struggling to fill some gaps. I may have misunderstood that you're struggling to fill some gaps usually filled by substitute teachers. I didn't know what that was referring to. Did I mishear?
I probably just meant classrooms and different roles during the day. So I mean, what happens is if like a campus like here at Cedar Ridge, they might have 25, 30 teachers who are out on a Friday, right? Because they've taken a sick day, personal day, something like that, and they might only get 10 substitute teachers, guest educators that are here that day. So what happens then, like at the end of the day, you've got to cover if you're the principal, somebody's got to go teach third period music, So
there's just a shortage of substitute teachers.
It's two things. Maybe there's a general shortage, but we have a large number of people who've signed up to be substitute teachers. But that's just one step. The next step is for them to actually take a job. If their phone rings in the morning, if you're a substitute teacher and you want to work, you can work every single day in Round Rock ISD. But that's the gap that we kind of struggle with sometimes, especially on some campuses more than others. Is that we can get them signed up, but it's also that next step of getting them to take the job in the morning. I know we've raised our pay, so I think we're the highest paying district now in the general area. So
is it a general just sort of reticence about the virus or health
I think it's
concerns?
Both. Where I was talking to Annette Vieras, who's our executive director of HR, about it the other day, and she said that they get just as many substitutes saying they're not going to sub because of a fear of COVID, and then they get a lot that say they're not going to sub because they would have to wear a mask. So it's like both. It's kind of both ways of thinking. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick and just go through, just kind of paint a picture maybe of I keep saying paint a picture, sorry about that. But just kind of give an overview of what virtual does look like, since it is different than maybe most of us are used to. Let me go back a little bit here. Can everybody see my screen where it says virtual learning support team?
Yes, we see your screen.
Yes.
All right. So one communication piece I wanted to share too is, I know some have said, we're spending a ton of funds on our virtual learning program. But in essence, we're really not. I mean, I think we've hired only a small handful of staff. The most of the teachers and people who are running the program are internal people already that are essentially doing this on top of their regular job. We bought Raz Kids, which is a program, and maybe a couple other things, but overall the cost of virtual learning has not been excessive. It has the monetary cost. There has been a cost in moving personnel around and everything like that, but monetarily it's not been huge. But just here's kind of the main leadership team that's been putting it together since we decided to do this early August or late January, July. But Barry Ryan, he's currently our principal of the elementary DAEP. That's a discipline alternative education placement, but he's also now the principal of the virtual program. Edie Benz, she's our director of professional development. She's essentially his partner in running the show. And then Autumn Hebert, she's our assistant director of instructional technology, but now she's also working with all the parents, all the students, everybody in our virtual program. Here's just some current numbers. And this has gone down since the beginning. So as you can see, we have a large number of students who are still learning virtually. I think we have by far more students than probably any district in the state, definitely any district around us. We made the decision in August that this is a health response, and we feel that need from our community. So we're not going to put a cap on something that's a health response. So a lot of districts, capped it at 1,000 kids, 500 kids. We opened it up, and we started with over 5,000. And as you can see, we're down to about 4677 at this point. You can see the number of teachers. One thing we honestly that is a struggle with virtual is the class sizes are larger than we would like. They are. If anybody has a virtual student on the call, your student's probably in a large classroom. That's a balancing act we're trying to keep going with maintaining the support on campus as well. So it's something that we're continuing to work on, and we're trying to get those class sizes a little smaller, but they are larger than we would like. Just kind of what the typical day looks like. It is a mix of, it's mainly synchronous, but there is a large portions of asynchronous time during the day. Our specials right now for K-6 are pretty much entirely asynchronous. So we have teams that are developing projects and developing lessons, and they're being pushed out to the students through Schoology. And they're essentially not getting live instruction in PE and art, but they are getting lessons to complete, and they're turning them in. So they'll get grades. And then obviously we're covering everything that would be covered TEKS wise, standards wise on campus is being covered in the virtual program. As well as all the different services that are being provided. We have special education, 504, dyslexia, bilingual, talented, gifted, everything that student support wise that students would be receiving on campus, they get it virtually as well. Obviously it looks a little different, but all those services are there. I'm going to put a link to this presentation in the chat here shortly, and that's a link right there to the just our main website. So there's a lot more information about what virtual looks like at that point. And then I wanted to talk about our next steps with virtual. So really, the main one that we're working on right now is like, okay, now we've been saying from the beginning that as soon as that vaccine is readily available, we're going to start moving towards having all the students back on campus. So that's not yet. We're starting to hear a little bit in the news about it, but definitely nothing is available yet. But that's kind of our next step internally that we're working through, is to kind of come up with some timelines, because we're definitely starting to get the emails and the questions from parents, about what's the spring plan, or what's kind of the next step, because they're hearing those news reports too that a vaccine is hopefully coming. You might have heard about Senate Bill 15. So this was a big win for school districts across the state. So Senate Bill 15 essentially is the funding of virtual learning. They call it remote learning. So our students who have been in our remote learning setting, we are going to end up getting ADA, average daily attendance funding for those students. So that's massive. So it's just a way to think about ADA funding is about $8,000 per student, or like $50 per day is another way to think about it. So as you can do the math on that's a large chunk of lost revenue. That's how some folks are looking at the cost of virtual. It's not an outward cost, but it was potentially going to be a loss of revenue. But we're not as concerned now about that loss of revenue piece. And a couple of elements that Senate Bill 15 added as well was that students who have 10 or more absences, we won't get funding for students who have 10 or more absences. We won't get virtual funding. So that's something that we're working with a lot of families right now that are getting close already in the virtual program to those 10 absences. Obviously, those are individual discussions as well. If there's circumstances going on with that student or that family, we're being flexible and working it through. But students do need to be, showing up for their virtual classes the same way they would on campus. So that's something we're working through right now. Another element to that you might have heard about is the students would have had to have been successful on their state assessments the year before. So we're not right now, though, looking at moving any students out of virtual based on that reasoning. We're still very much approaching our current virtual learning program as a COVID response. So we're not going to penalize a student academically for a health concern. So if that makes sense, like just because somebody wasn't successful on a STAR exam, but they have a medical reason to not be going to school right now, we're not going to penalize them because they didn't perform satisfactorily on their STAR exam. We're going to intervene for them. We're going to work with them. We do all the academic things, but we're not going to do that. And then the third element to the funding with Senate Bill 15 is just class grades from the year before. So again, that's something that down the road we'll bring into our virtual learning program, but not right now for this COVID response. And then really the next one is our long-term planning. now that we have Senate Bill 15 has passed and we do have, you know, a way to offer remote learning, I think we're going to maintain, you know, what we're doing right now, you know, until COVID is hopefully behind us sooner than later. And then essentially our plan right now is to take a pause, probably get some community coalition or committees together that we can really talk about, okay, like in Round Rock ISD, what do we think our remote learning plan should look like? You know, should it look differently at high schools? Maybe we don't do anything at the early grades, but only in high school. Maybe we do middle school, I don't know, whatever it might be. But now that we have a way to offer this kind of service going forward, we want to really take some time and get some feedback and discussions with our parents, with our students, with our teachers about what virtual learning will look like in the future. I want to be clear, like what we're doing now is not our long-term virtual learning plan. Right now is a COVID response that we put together so that we could maintain instruction and at the same time offer a venue for students and families that didn't feel safe coming back to school. So that's what we're doing now, but that's not our long-term virtual learning plan. All right, I did a lot of talking, and like I said, I'll answer any questions about virtual that anybody might have, and then I'll stick that a link to that presentation in the chat if anybody would like it. Any questions about what we're doing with our virtual learning program currently?
Yeah, I was just curious as far as especially as far as services like, you know, 504 plan and SPED. Has there been any kind of feedback that you all been able to get from those families who are receiving those services as to, you know, how that's going, or are you know, if there's any concerns they're having that can be addressed? I guess there's, you know, there's obviously things that cannot necessarily be done virtually that could be done in person, but I just wasn't sure if there was any feedback or anything that you have put in place to get that feedback from those families receiving services like that.
Yeah, I think some of the main like adjustments, we're making lots of adjustments along the way with this. Some of those I do know that was based on feedback from some of the families of our students receiving those services was the schedule. So the schedule was not really working for students who, in the beginning, who were receiving different types of services. So we readjusted that so it kind of flowed a little more smoothly. That was the same thing with our dyslexia, students receiving dyslexia services. So we were having our on-campus dyslexia service providers are essentially not hybrid in the sense that they have some kids on the screen and some kids in front of them at the same time, but they're the same people that are doing it. So they might have an hour out of their day when they're working with the virtual students, and then 3 hours out of their day when they're working with on-campus students. So that definitely took some time to get all that worked out. I think it's working better now. But the truth of it is a lot of the services that students receive, I think are just better in person, you know, and I think we're working to get past that. But I think I know our special department's always open for that feedback, and I know we've heard it, we've made adjustments. So I think we'll make more adjustments. So that's one thing I tell our teachers in the virtual and Edie and Barry as they're working it, is that like we're not setting up a 10-year plan. We're setting up like chunks of 3-week plans, you know, because kids go back to campus, and then at some point teachers are going to go back with them. So there's going to be this fluid movement really until we're done with this portion of virtual learning. So we're constantly adjusting. Ms. Kyrish,
thank you so much. No, I just want to say thank you for answering the question.
I do have a question, but I did want to say, Cornell, because I serve on CPAC, and so I hear a lot of feedback from parents of children with special needs, like I think when the school year first began, we were hearing more complaints about access to services, and fewer as the year is, like, you know, as the semester has kind of gotten started. I hear probably more kids that need assistance in a gen ed setting because of the size of the virtual classes, that's more of a struggle. And I think it sounds to me like it's a logistical issue. Anyway,
no, you hit the nail. You're correct. It is like currently we're working on the only way to get those class sizes down essentially is to get more teachers, and it's a logistical kind of struggle back and forth, with, we have our on-campus learning, we have our virtual learning. So it's something we're working through, and I think we're going to hopefully see some relief to that. But you're right, that's a struggle.
And then I know you said that you're not going to penalize students that are in the virtual program that didn't take the STAR. How is the accelerated learning going to be rolled out for students that are in a virtual environment who aren't being penalized but need it?
Yeah, so one benefit, I guess you look at it as a benefit potentially in the virtual schedule, I think, is there is more time for intervention, time for accelerated instruction. So I think we're honestly just now adding that element in to the program, but there's ways in that virtual schedule. There's probably more ways to push in or pull students into accelerated instruction groups during some of their asynchronous time. And then we're also looking at, outside the parameters of the regular school day, to have those resources available as well. All right, Hillary, is your hand up?
Okay, here I am unmuted. I guess my question was, you'd mentioned there's fewer students, so there's too much staff, but there's not enough staff, and the class sizes are really big. So how does that all work?
Well, there's two elements to that. So everything takes time, right? And that, as classes are built and schedules are built, it takes a significant amount of time to move students around and move teachers around. And at the same time, there are fewer students on campus, but the amount of accelerated instruction and the amount of intervention and the amount of needs that are there are high as well. So it's not just a straight numbers game, but I think that's what we're hoping, is that with some of that movement that's going to come with time, that we're going to be able to have more teachers available for the virtual program. And then hopefully too, like I keep saying, as the vaccine does hopefully soon become available, I'm hoping more students. We've already seen a lot of 6th grade students, I think, as they're hitting that 12-year-old age group, or they just decide, that they want to go back. That number has definitely gone down quicker than our elementary numbers. So it might be a muddy answer, but it's kind of a muddy problem that we're trying to work through. It sounds simple. We've got 47,000 kids. We've got this many teachers. I think if you're starting a school year with that, it's probably a little cleaner. But we started a school year with a projection of over 50, and that's how we scheduled. And now it's responding to something that was already built rather than building something from the ground up.
Okay.
All right, I don't see any other hands up. So I think I'll kick it back to Judge Jones. And like I said, I'll put that link in the chat, and I'm always here for answers or questions if you have.
Thank you. And so this is an example of the kind of presentations that we may have just on different topic areas. I thought this was a good one to get us started about what's currently going on, so we can start getting a feel for what's happening in the school district. So our virtual students are also part of our consideration. And so I think it's going to be a little nuanced as we think about recommendations, that we're thinking about the needs of the kids who are already in person and the kids who are still going virtual. They're both the responsibility of the SHAC to consider as we think about what recommendations we'd like to make. And so particularly for those of you who may be new to the SHAC, I know this hour has probably been a lot to digest and process. So I just want to take a moment right now and check in with everybody and just see if there's any group discussion that you all would like to have in general, or any questions in general, or even specific if you did think of something for Ryan. I just want to open up the floor right now for kind of open discussion. Any thoughts, comments, questions? All right. This is a good group. I think we're going to get some stuff done this year. Very nice. Always feel free, if you do have something that comes up, just raise your hand. I think that feature has been working pretty good for us. Or if it's a lull in the conversation, if you want to speak up. This is the bulk of what we wanted to do today, to kind of get everybody introduced. And Ryan, I know we used to get those binders for new members of the SHAC, and I think you said you had some for any new members who maybe want to swing by and pick one up.
I do. We're working on those. So I just got our new copies of Robert's Rules of Orders, Robert's Rule of Order. I don't know if it's orders or order, but those just came in yesterday. So we are working on getting those binders together. If you need one, I think it would be helpful. Everybody has my email as well. Just send me an email. And then hopefully I'd say by Monday of next week, we should have those available up front at the admin building if you want to swing by and get them. So just send me an email, make sure it gets put together, and it'll be there for you.
So any of you who joined the SHAC prior to the pandemic received one in person at your first SHAC meeting. And if you've only joined during the pandemic, it may be something that could be a helpful tool. It'll have a lot of our documents like our bylaws, but it does have a copy of those rules of how we conduct our meetings and other helpful information like some of the statutes that go along with the SHAC requirements and what we are charged with. So if you want to do that, just send an email to Ryan so he can connect with you to schedule a time to pick up that binder. Any other thoughts, questions, or discussion? All right, so then I would like to take a temperature from everybody about the way that we move forward with our meetings and the committee meetings. One suggestion that I did have was that we could use our time like we did this first hour to get all the information and take care of general SHAC business, and then be able to adjourn and use the rest of our time in the committees to start working on those recommendations so we can be very well prepared. But does anybody have any thoughts about that and how you would like to proceed? Anybody opposed to doing it that way? Michael, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think a lot of us have limited time, and that would be really helpful to follow up with our committees. It was challenging to meet, even though it's important work. It was challenging to arrange in our separate committees. So that'd be great if we could just piggyback to this.
Okay. Well then, is anybody adamantly opposed to that plan? I think everybody likes efficient and streamlined meetings. Okay, good. All on the same page. So then what I'll ask for is a motion to adjourn the SHAC meeting and allow the committees to go into breakout rooms.
I make a motion to adjourn the SHAC meeting.
Any second?
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? All right, all those in favor? Just wave your hand or a thumbs up. Yeah, there we go. Anyone opposed to the motion? All right, so then we will adjourn the SHAC meeting. And if you give us just a second, I'm going to create I think we need to just create those real quick. And then you will get to select which room you want to go into. If you're familiar with Zoom, you'll be able to move if you went into the wrong meeting. There's going to be a little button that shows up down at the bottom that says breakout rooms. And then once y'all have spoken and decided kind of how you would like to move forward or talk about the charge of that committee, y'all can just leave because the SHAC meeting is adjourned. What I will say is to start thinking about who may be a good lead person and who may be a good scribe, because we will get you a template for how the recommendations can be crafted as far as making sure we follow a similar pattern so that it's easy to pull the report together. So you'll get a little bit more guidance this year. If you were here last year, we kind of put it together as best we can. And I had the pleasure of making everybody's recommendations look as streamlined as possible, but we're going to provide a template for this year. And so if you could start thinking about who's going to help keep everybody on task, what we'll do is if that person will be responsible for collecting the names of who's going to join the committee and email that to me, and then I can make sure that y'all all stay connected on your committee work. So give me just a second, and then I will allow you all to break out. But I started
making the rooms.
You already made them, and you did it so that they can join their own rooms?
Yeah.
All right. If you want to go ahead and open up the rooms, I believe we can adjourn the SHAC meeting and allow people to move into their committees.
1 second.
All right, so you can look down at the bottom, click the breakout room button and select which one you would like to join. Thank you all for coming to the first SHAC meeting. And with the SHAC meeting adjourned, I believe we can stop the recording and stop the live stream as well.